Chapter 1. I was very stuffy and hot where I crouched, and the straw tickled my legs. There was hardly any light either, but I could see the bird on her nest of straw. She was about 5 feet away from me on the far side of the kitchen house, and she had no idea I was there. If I moved, I would spoil everything, so I stayed quite still. So did the chicken. Presently, very slowly, she raised herself from the straw. She was facing away from me and bending forward. I saw a round white object gradually protruding from the feathers between her legs. It got bigger suddenly. She gave a little wiggle and plop. It landed on a straw. I had actually watched the laying of an eggs with loud, pleased clucks. The chicken shook her feathers, moved the egg with her back beak, then proudly strutted her way out of the hen house. I tumbled out, stiff but excited, and ran all the way to the house. My mother was just about to call the police. She had an idea. She had been searching for me for hours. She had no idea been searching for me for hours. She had no idea that I had been crouched all that time in the hen house. This was my first serious observation of animal behavior. I was 5 years old. How lucky it was that I had an understanding mother. Instead of being angry because I had given her a scare, she wanted to know all about the wonderful thing I had just been. Even though I was so young at the time, I can still remember a lot about that experience. I remember being puzzled about eggs, whereon a chicken was there an opening big enough for an egg to come out? I don't know if I asked anyone. If I did, no one told me. I decided to find out for going for myself. I remember thinking as I watched a hen going into one of the hen houses, uh, now I'll follow her and see what happens. And I remember how she rushed it out, squawking in alarm when I squeezed in after her. Obviously, that was no good. I would have to get in first and wait until a hen decided to come in and lay her egg. That is why I was so long inside the hen house. You have to you have to be a patient if you want to learn about animals. When I grew up, I became an ethologist, a long word that simply means a scientist who studies animal behavior. Most people, when they think of an animal, think of a creature with hair, such as a dog or cat, a rabbit or mouse, a horse or a cow. In fact, the word animal includes all living creatures except for plants, jellyfish and insects, frogs and lizards, fish and birds are all animals, just as cats and dogs are. But cats and dogs and horses and mammals, a special kind of animal, human, are mammals too. You probably know all that. Children today know a lot more about these sorts of things that most adults did when I was your age. I remember having a huge argument with one of many aunts when I tried to make her believe that a whale was a mammal, not a fish. She wouldn't believe me, and I cried. I was so frustrated. The first person to be known as an ethologist was an Australian, Conrad Lawrence. He is often called the father of ethology. He has always loved animals of all kinds. In addition to the dogs he keeps as pets, he has lived with all kinds of wild animals in his home near Vienna. Most of the most of these animals have been perfectly free to come and go as they please. Conrad Lawrence is best known for his work with gray-lag geese. He began raising and studying them into 1935. He still sometimes observes them even now, though he is over 80 years old. Conrad Lawrence found that adult male and female geese are very faithful to each other. They fall in love, marry, and stay together until one of one of them dies. Then the one who is left does not marry again. If its mother is still alive, it goes back to her. Conrad Lawrence has been mother to many geese, those he raised from the time they left their eggs. When they became adult, these geese left him and flew off with wild geese. But if they lost their mates, they came back to Lawrence. He found that baby geese, when they hatch from their eggs, learn to flow, learn to follow the first moving object they see. Usually, this is the mother goose. But when Lawrence raised geese, they followed him instead. Then he discovered that if he hatched mallard duck eggs, the ducklings refused to follow him. But if they were hatched by a domestic duck, they followed her at once. What did the domestic duck do that Lawrence, didn't? She quacked, and her quacking sound, just like the quacking of a mallard duck. Ah, thought Lawrence, this is the secret. But scientists must always make tests, so when the next lot of little ducklings hatched, Lawrence bent over them, quacked, and gradually moved away. They followed him, but it was very exhausting for him taking his baby ducklings for a walk. If he stood up, towering high above them, or if he stopped, quacking for more than a moment, they stopped following and began to cry loudly. One day when Lawrence was walking the ducklings, something made him look up, peering over the tall wall around the meadow where some of the village people they were staring in horror at the processor who, as far as they could see, was quacking away to himself while creeping along the ground in the most peculiar, peculiar why the ducklings were completely hidden in the long grass. No wonder the local people began to think the professor was crazy. Ethologists are interested in how animals live their lives and why they behave the way they do. They are always asking questions. Why does a dog go round and round in a circle before it lies on its bed? How does a male moth find his female even if she is miles away? And so on. Some ethologists go on and on asking questions about one particular kind of animal, Curl Curlvan Frisch. A German was fascinated by honeybees. How did a worker bee returning to her hive after collecting honey, sorry, tell the other worker bees where to go? They could find her honey patch even if she herself didn't return. He find out that the returning bee performs a wonderful waggly dance that tells the others exactly where to go. She gives signals with her legs, her wings, and her tail. Then Frisch wanted to know whether she could see the beautiful colors of the flowers. How good, how good was her sense of smell? The more answers he found, the more questions he asked. Other ethologists are interested in a particular kind of behavior, such as the migration of birds or the different ways that juicy, nice tasting insects mimic poisonous ones so they will not be eaten, or the food burying behavior of rats and mice. All ethologists ask questions: how, why, what for? Ethologists do their studying in different ways. Lawrence, as I said, took the animals he wanted to observe home with him. He had a very long suffering wife. Others like Nico Tinbergen and another very famous early ethologists do experiments out in the place where the animals live. Tinbergen is best known for his work with different kinds of seagulls. He used to go out to the cliffs and rocky ledges where they breed. Yeah, he spent a lot of time just watching them and writing down all the different things they did. But he also experimented. He learned some most extraordinary things. Some gulls, for example, become really excited if they see a giant egg. If Timbergen placed such a monster near the nest of a herring gull or an, an oyster catcher, she would leave her own egg and desperately and hopelessly try to clamber clamber onto the monster's fake. Then there are other ethologists who also go to the home of the animals they wish to study but do not do experiments. They just watch, wait for things to happen and record what they hear and see. That is what I do. I began living among studying the chimpanzees in Tanzania. It was Tanganyika when I began in 1960. I am still studying them today with the help of the Tanzanian field staff. It took me a long time before I could get close enough to the chimps to make good observations. At first, they were very shy. It took even longer before I understood their language of calls and gestures and the way they live in their society. But it was worth it because apart from the human animal, the chimpanzees is the most fascinating animal of all. At least this is what I think. How on earth, you may wonder, did I get started? I'll tell you.